Humans in the universe were endlessly fascinating to him. As you all know, his mind was like a steel trap of infinite capacity, and there is nothing we love more than the processes of adding to the already prodigious mountain of information in there. These endless mysteries about you and me and the universe energized his unceasing quest for more. Capturing the essence of such a complex fellow is hard, but I'd like to try. I could begin with stories about hundreds of times in the faculty lounge, with Charlie holding forth as Lou Barone sardonically glared at him, while Bob Ebert laughed at his irreverent positions on matters political, or I showing consternation at his lack of considering the psychological dimensions in his political choice. Or Susie Strew just looking at him with a wry smile, like a parent being aware that a child has many things yet to discover on their way to maturity. Bob Drake, an early mentor, loved his creative ambiguity. I could begin by listing names of people to whom he completely committed his heart emotionally and materially. His niece, Tina, and her parents, John and Joan, for example, or his dear friends, Barb Fortin, Linda Short, Janice Kelly-Kitely, Neil Poole, and the Davids, Orr and Nossinger, and especially his beloved Hoppy, and many more. But I won't. Instead, I offer 3 telling stories about Charlie, all having to do with him and me and our travels together. One time we met out in Montana and went on 2 adventures. By the way, most of you know, to travel with Charlie is to be immersed in the world's entire collection of operatic performances. Depending, of course, on how long the trip was. You know, if it was a long trip, you heard them all. If it was a short trip, you heard a few. Charlie and I, on a hike in the backcountry of Glacier National Park, at the time we were both healthier specimens, talked about all things Montana. A verbal feast made up of his knowledge of the Native American tribes and settlement history of Montana, and my offerings about Lewis and Clark and the natural history of the state. This feast fueled our grinding climb to Grinnell Glacier in the northern reaches of the park. On the way, we saw signs of and eventually met up with a standing, wind-sniffing grizzly bear. Charlie said, in his Bostonian accent, while recognizably wagging his finger as he did all up in the general direction of the bear, "Now what, Dwyer?" he said. I, of course, fell back on the old joke, "Beats me, Charlie. The problem isn't as large for me because I can run faster than you." What we did do, after he mumbled a protective Latin incantation, was decide that we were downwind of the visually impaired bear and that we would proceed safely, as it should be, he remarked dismissively. When we reached the end of the climb, Charlie wheezed, "Mongo, I don't know whether it's the beauty of the glacier or the climb that takes my breath away. I'm not sure which." Of another day in the Absarokas, Charlie and I, with me driving, explored Immigrant Pass, where a gold camp high in the mountains was barely accessible on a path bulldozed diagonally and upward across the unstable scree of a steep mountain. On the way up, the 1,500-foot sheer drop was on my side, and I didn't look at it much because I was driving. On the way down, however, it was on Charlie's side. He had slid himself as far left as he could, holding on with white-knuckled grip to the dash and to his seatbelt, repeatedly mumbling in nomine patri et filii et spiritus sancti, "Si hoc est ad finum." Later I learned that, of course, he was doing the sign of the cross, he was also saying, "Perhaps this is the end," in Latin. All of this, by the way, surrounded and encapsulated by the fleshy and airy sounds of a glorious aria emanating from the DVD. A final story attesting to the sweetness of Charlie's heart. After returning from the West some years ago, he knew that I was on my way out there some month and a half later. He wrote me cryptically, telling me to stop at the Powder River Bridge. I wondered about his intentions. In late July, on a very hot day, I arrived at that isolated place in Wyoming where the road crosses the Powder River. I pulled over and hiked down the embankment and under the bridge, there to find that on the main beam of the bridge, Charlie had left me a Golden Molson's bottle of ale. I loved it. I sat under the desert bridge in the cool and contemplated the natural wonders and conversed with Charlie about how grateful I am for his friendship. Ending now with the words of playwright Aeschylus, these words found at the memorial of another Irish rascal, whose public life Charlie had the courage to scrutinize with an objective yet affiliative eye, and which coincidentally I remembered now at the University of JFK's death. These words sing the sadness of our loss of Charles Francis Xavier Burke, the learner, the teacher, the lover of the universe, and the wellspring of citizens. He who learns must suffer. Even in our sleep, pain that cannot forget falls drop by drop upon the heart. And in our own despite, against our will, comes wisdom to us by the awful grace of God. I miss you, C.D.